Over this one? No? Come on. You guys are staring at me like a tree full of owls right now. No?
There's a lot of owls.
What was the conversation between the guy that you said that had the guy that died, and he had him and he didn't get him out? What was that, how did that conversation go, or what came out of that?
He went in there. Well, first of all, he was part of the attack. So they're all out of air and they're running out. So they're all standing out there. It took about 2 minutes while they're standing out there. They hear a mayday, Tarver's mayday. So they all came out on viber alerts. So that captain that was out there blowing the smoke that he just sucked in out of his nose, he clicked in along with a lot of other people, low on air, and they ran back in there. And was he the best rescuer? He was minus his air. Because did he know he just left the work area? So he hauled ass just where he was. If it was a naked rig crew, they would have fumbled around in there trying to find the work area. And that's another value on Deck and Recycle. That company comes out and they fall back in on deck. They're the best rescue company on the planet because they're very familiar with the hazard zone. So he runs back in there. His vibrator's going off. He's got Tarver, and he's all CO'd up. And Tarver was about 6'2", he weighed 260, and he could run a 6-minute mile. He was a very popular member of our fire department. He says, "No, we've got to go this way." And he's saying, "No." And you saw Nolan out there. I mean, he weighed 180 pounds. He wasn't going to like drag Tarver. So Tarver blasted him, knocks him into a grocery shelf, and then he sees him run off in the smoke. So now he's sitting there, and he's saying, do I stay in here and go after him, or do I get myself out of here because I think I got about 10 more breaths left? So we were watching, when I was sitting there watching, talking to my brother, Nolan's the one who dumped out of the front, and you can see his regulator clicked out, and he had to unclick. He said he took 4 breaths. And he was the guy that says, if I'm not reading these couplings right, I'm going to die. So he dumped out, and then that's what he was talking when he was blowing. He says, Tarver is in the back corner next to the freezer. And that's what he was telling all the other rescuers. Get out there. So the next set that came in took about 10 minutes to find him, and he's nailed down on the floor. So as they're trying to drag him, a 260-pound man with all the equipment on was 300 pounds. And what was our impression back then? It was the I knew you'd come thing, where I'm just going to take Brett Tarver and throw him on my shoulder. That didn't happen. It took 8 rescue waves to get him out of that building. So, and then Thomason, they found him, and because Thomason was, he weighed about 160. So he was a much easier rescue for us. And they got him out the front before they switched to the back part of it. Conditions hadn't worsened to the point where it wasn't rolling across that whole grocery store. Here, I've been watching this, I'm very connected to this UL stuff. You guys see how the grocery store lit up? When do you think that happened? Remember, we had a westerly wind coming in from the Charlie Delta corner. The exit point is in front of the store.
When you was in front of the school.
It's when they opened up the roof. The attic flashed, it gave it the air it needed, and then it blasted all the ceilings down, and it just rolled across that whole place. Now, before the NIST-UL stuff and all the science and fire behavior, we just thought the store lit up. But now when we looked at it, at the sequence of events, now they heard Mayday ladder 24s up there cutting a hole. When you hear Mayday, 1 hole isn't good enough, is it? So they started cutting gigantic sections of that roof off. Every new section they cut off intensified the fire dramatically. Because no one was putting any water on the fire. They were all running for their lives. And there was too much fire volume for a set of hand lines to put out anyway. You saw a ladder truck just squirting into the wind on that. So, you got it up? Oh, here we go. Wow, you guys are good. When we do this with these guys, day 1 of your CERT lab, as you guys go through, they'll cover the functions of command. It'll be a brief review. And it gives you guys an opportunity to talk about what works for you guys, what doesn't work, and you kind of like get your common footing. The next PowerPoint that takes you almost the rest of the day is a communication overview, where you talk about what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say on the radio. So we have all these high-performing, it's usually training or operations chiefs, it's a good group of people that we're usually training, and you start telling them about radio silence, they look at you funny. Did you guys? So no way, man. I get paid to manage completion reports. And the last thing I want to do is not have those completion reports. So as we reinforce it, these guys realize very quickly that you're really the only way to manage anything. And then from day 3, we go day 4 into Mayday, so they have the radio discipline down, and now you can actually manage a Mayday on one channel. So we say there's 3 types of radio reporting. Is once I get all these units forward, all these portable radios, it's routine radio traffic, priority, and emergency. So we go through all those. Routine radio traffic is when I assign, let's say on this, engine 1 has gone through into the fire occupancy alpha, and this is the big end. Engine 2 gets there, and I tell them to stretch another hand line into the Bravo 1 exposure. I want you to check the attic for fire extension and get me a primary all clear. So once I get that order as engine 2, I'm going to maintain radio silence once I'm assigned the scene. I'm not allowed to talk on the radio unless the IC calls me, or I have priority radio traffic. All communications are driven by the IC. Shut up on the radio, I'll call you when I want the information out of you. You have to use the order model, the repeat model, to from, and they confirm that they got the order. No good news reporting. I'm going to assume that you have good news for me based on what? Your silence. If you're not on the radio, what you have is all good news. Because if you didn't have all good news, what would you do? Get on the radio. This is one of my favorite slides out of the whole package. Because that's the fire demon, right? The fire demon makes us go crazy. It does. Now I'm on the fire ground. It's engine 1, ladder 1, engine 2, engine 3, engine 4, ladder 4, engine 5. I've got all those radios and personalities that are attached to them. And everybody is their own special snowflake, right? I'm an individual snowflake and I'm very special, and I have to get on the radio to tell everybody all the special things that I did to control this problem. Because I'm special. Now what we do? I'm special, special, special. Now, we need to melt all snowflakes. And this is what I want from you. Does engine 1 think that their radio is more important than engine 4's? Does engine 4 think that what they have to say is more important than anybody else on the scene? So we say here is, you are radio silence, and the only time that you can get on is for red flag info only. The sender can break into the order model. Engine 4, level 1. Command engine 4, I want you to go on deck on alpha. Well, before engine 4 can say copy on deck on alpha, engine 2 interrupts it with I got an attic fire. You're allowed to interrupt the order model with priority traffic. Important tactical info that require adjustments to the current incident action plan or strategy, and it usually affects the entire operation. Do I need to know about the routine work details of your assigned area when it doesn't affect me next door? We all know when I send you in there to get a primary all clear, check for fire extension, the activities that are associated with that. I don't need you to get on the radio and tell me what you're doing because I already know what you're doing. Only get on the radio if you have bad news that affects everybody. Or really bad news is affecting your crew. Oops, I'm going to have to get rid of that one. Usually bad news. One of the ways that I can get out of the silence is when I assign a unit and I need a critical piece of information. I say, I want you to go here, and as soon as you get there, call me and tell me what's going on. So you could get some good news because you're telling them to go there and give you good news. So we say priority traffic for red flag information only. So I don't go to the next slide, as I always ask the group, what will give you guys permission to get on the radio? Tell me, when can I get on the radio and say, engine 1 to command?
Imminent collapse.
So sudden bad events. See, I'm a whiteboard guy. Somebody said mayday, mayday, mayday. That's not priority traffic though. It is the highest priority traffic, but it doesn't come in as Engine 1 to command priority traffic. It comes in as engine 1 to command mayday, mayday, mayday. What else you guys say? Vic? That would be this one right here, sudden bad events. Now if it collapses, do I usually see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll see that from the outside. But usually, it was in the old days, the IC could get a pretty good picture from the outside of fire behavior. But the new compartment and materials that are burning, sometimes the IC can't see bad things going on there with fire. Flow paths, all of that. So that would be sudden bad events on a flow path. But if it was a collapse, partial collapse, I'm going to see that. I'm going to start reacting to that by asking those companies who got this on them. So a lot of times for a collapse, I'm going to be on the radio first, calling companies, seeing who got affected by it. I'd say sudden bad event. Conditions change drastically, collapse.
Your assignment's done, you're ready for another assignment?
That would be a status change. And we'll talk about those in a minute. How about unable? And you'll see there's about 4 unables, so I just make it all unables. I'm unable to complete the assignment that you assigned me because I can't make it to the work area. I'm unable to complete the assignment because I have an urgent need to be backed up to complete my assignment. I'm unable to get to this work area, I need a reassignment. A status change is, let's say I send them over here to Bravo 1. They get a primary all clear, they pull the ceiling, and there's no fire extension in Bravo 1. No, they're not allowed to get on the radio with bad news, so what are they going to get on the radio with? A status change. It'll be engine 2 to command with a status change. Go ahead. What does the incident commander immediately know what engine 2 is going to say? It's going to be good news. The first thing when you start a CAN report out, you start out with the tactical priorities that you've already completed. So engine 2 to command with a status change. Go ahead, engine 2. I have a primary all clear, we open up the ceilings, we have no extension into Bravo 1. My request is I need reassignment. Or I need to exit or recycle, I'm out of air. So it's a status change. If I send ladder 1 to the roof to give me a roof report, he's going to come back with that roof report. If there's no bad news, and he's going to say, ladder 1 to command with a roof report. Go ahead with your roof report. What do you know he's going to say? Good news. What if ladder 1 comes back and he says, ladder 1 to command priority traffic? What's he going to tell me? I know when ladder 1 says priority traffic, he's going to tell me I got fire in the attic. And then he better add where my firewalls are so I can get ahead of it. But a status change comes in, I'm out of air and I have to leave the work zone. Or I've completed your assignment and I'm not going to stand here in Bravo 1 for the next 10 minutes until I run out of air. Give me a new assignment. But on this one, could the BC say, hey, listen, man, I still want you to stay in Bravo 1 and monitor the attic space. Just keep an eye on it and let me know so it doesn't extend over there. Copy will remain in Bravo 1 and we're going to keep eyes on the attic. Now 10 minutes later, they're 35% air. Engine 2 to command status change. Be advised we're out of air, we need to exit recycle. I know what's coming from. If I assign somebody to get an all clear somewhere, what am I going to assume unless they say this? You do not find any bodies because you haven't got on the radio and told me you have a victim. So I'm going to assume by your silence it's good news and you're getting all clears everywhere. Roof reports. That contain good tactical information. If the IC can see what the roof's doing and I got nothing special to say, I'm going to stay off the radio. What I'm going to do probably is I'm going to say, ladder 1 to command status change. They're just going on the roof and we're leaving the roof. Any others? I've got a list. Sure. I love lists. They take the gray out of it. If somebody's asking for an attic fire, and this is what we discuss a lot in our deal. Engine 2 says, I've opened up the attic and I got an active attic fire, and I need another company in here to assist. And I send another company in to assist, and they just show up manpower-wise. What happens?
Doesn't increase your ability to not fire.
Yeah, they're just coming in and, give me a hand. We'll give you a hand. You guys work hard, work hard. So when I ask for needs, do I need to be very specific? I need another hand line in here with hooks. So what it does is it takes the gray out of it. Because what's gonna happen when you all pile out? Why did you show up here with hand line hooks? What's the answer? Didn't tell me to. But through command training, and you guys sit here debriefing after all the sims, could you say, hey, when I tell you to go in and assist engine 2 with an attic fire, what is in that order? You bring in a hand line and hooks when I say go assist somebody with an attic fire. And that's going to shorten that radio communication, isn't it? So anytime that we can like eliminate gray area is the assumed thing, you make a, you know what. Unable, unable, unable. Victims encountered, roof reports, working concealed space fires that are not easily controlled by a locating unit. So this had a contents fire, I open up the ceiling tiles, and it's got little sparks. 2 seconds of water, it's out. Do I need to get on the radio? No, I control it very easily. I open it up and it's rolling across here. Now then, well, we'll look at these. Anytime the IC contacts you or directs you to tell them, I need this specific information, I'm giving you permission to call me whenever you get it. So what we do next is we look at CAN reports. You guys remember this scenario? So engine 1 has been assigned to the first floor. They do a quick hit on the outside of that, they paint that whole side of the building. They drag a hand line around to the other side, they make entry, and this is what they're seeing. They get a knockdown, they get a primary, no extension of the joist space. Is that all good news? Now what am I trying to do as the IC on the 3rd floor here? I'm trying to assign units to get up to the 3rd floor in that fire unit above and then on both sides to try to get ahead of a possible attic fire. So the last thing I need is for engine 1 in the middle of that to come on and give me a CAN report with good news. So once I get that attack in place, what I'll do is I'll go back down to engine 1 and I'll get a CAN report, tell me what's going on in your area. Or it'll come into a status change. I get so busy on the 3rd floor that now engine 1's going to come back and say, hey, we got all clears, fire controls, everything's done, and we're going to exit and recycle. So same fire. I assign engine 1 here, ladder 1 to the 2nd floor above the fire, and then engine 2 to the 3rd floor. So now engine 2 gets a primary all clear. They knock down little hot spots, they open up the ceiling, and they got a working attic fire. It's ripping through that whole attic space. What does engine 2 need to do? Priority traffic. I've got a primary all clear, we've got a knock in the interior department, we opened up the ceilings, we've got a rolling attic fire above us. What's my need? We need additional companies with hand lines and hooks to get on both sides of this apartment to try to get ahead of this attic fire. And the needs really helps the ICs and the buggy, it drives where those assignments are going to be, based on the critical needs. Here I set engine 1's here, ladder 1, pull 2nd line off engine 1, go to the 2nd floor, check for extension, and give me a primary all clear. There's 2 bedrooms here on the alpha side. The middle is a living room, and there's a 3rd bedroom on the Charlie side. They search the 1st bedroom off the staircase, the 2nd bedroom, and they find my poor little daughter here. That's a picture of her, which has been really sad because you don't know how many times I've seen her die in fires. So what's the CAN report? Ladder 1 to command, priority traffic. We found a victim on the 2nd floor, alpha side. Now what? How are you going to get the victim out? Normal means? Do I need a ladder? When I get the victim out, what am I going to need? EMS. And then what else did I didn't do to the whole 2nd floor?
Finish primary.
So I've got to, now that's critical information I got to react to. Could they say, hey man, I need a ground ladder and I haven't finished the search on the 2nd floor? That's a lot of makeup for the IC, isn't it? The best way to screw up an offensive incident action plan is to throw a victim in it. Because it takes a lot of resource to manage that. Just like it takes to manage a Mayday firefighter. You got to get them out of the structure. We used to let companies in the hazard zone and around it go directly to alarm and do emergency traffic. So we have power lines down or whatever. But when companies went directly to alarm for emergency traffic, it was very hard to get that control back to the radio, back to the IC. It fragmented it. So we say, you can't contact alarm with emergency traffic anymore. You contact the IC with priority traffic, and then they'll filter it, and then they'll go to the alarm room and ask for emergency traffic if it's warranted. Because now I go to give me emergency traffic tones, the IC is announcing what the emergency traffic is, the alarm room repeats it back, and then they throw it back down to the incident commander. So it streamlines it and it makes it a lot less fragmented. Also, you think that it would take more radio time. It actually takes less time to do it this way than to go this way, and then how do I get it back to here? So it eliminates a lot of confusion on the front end, and it leaves the IC in control of the operation. So go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, you had all those examples of priority traffic, and those included significant changes, a collapse. Somebody can get on and break radio by calling a mayday. If a collapse and all these significant flashover backdrafts are priority traffic, and a mayday is on its own, mayday, 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 what would constitute emergency traffic in your mind? Is there a list of those as well? It seems like everything that, in my mind, that would be emergency traffic was in your list of priority traffic.
For example, Phoenix had with small yards, and the backyards were fenced. And we had power poles, and then we had alleys. So you had the street where the out sides of the house were, you have these fenced in yards, and then you have an alley. You guys have very many alleys here? That's how Phoenix was set up. Now, the new neighborhoods don't have alleys to maximize, and then they put their trash on the alpha side of their house now. But most of Phoenix was set up with alleys. We had all the telephone poles down the alleys, and all your drops came in from the Charlie side. So if you had something rolling out with the Charlie side, a lot of times you would melt that drop off, and now you got down power line dancing like a snake. And if it was on chain link fence, what would energize the whole chain link fence on the block, because they're usually interconnected with each other. So somebody would get to the rear of the building and they'd go engine 2 to alarm emergency traffic. We got power lines down on Charlie's side. Well, the alarm room would announce it, and then the IC had to somehow get it back to them so that they could tell everybody, hey, don't do the Charlie side thing. So instead of them going directly to the alarm room now, they would say, engine 2 to command priority traffic. We have power lines down. Copy that, power lines down on Charlie side. Command to alarm, emergency traffic. So this person gets to decide what's emergency traffic or not. It could be this person says, engine 1 to command, we've got a rolling attic fire in here. He's seeing it from the outside, where he's priority traffic attic fire. He says, copy attic fire, command to alarm emergency traffic. Go ahead. Got a rolling attic fire, I'm going to have all units evacuate, and we're going to go defensive. So now it all goes to this person on who decides who's going to go to the alarm room. Because when a company officer in the hazard zone goes to the alarm room, it really screws up the call. Have you guys seen that? It happened in Phoenix a lot, and our radio traffic was so condensed, a lot of people use emergency traffic just to talk to the IC. And it wasn't really emergency traffic, but it was priority traffic, but they couldn't get in on the radio, so they declared emergency traffic so that they could just talk. Do you guys have that happening here? There's a lot of systems around the country that really abuse emergency traffic. Like you'll have 4 or 5 emergency traffics throughout the event, and they're not emergency traffics. They're mostly my effort just to try to get the radio so I can get some important information out.
We use different channels, I think, that alleviate some of that, We have 2 ops channels and, the IC's on a different channel. That's, I think, we spread out all that conversation to where it's not all on one. That's gonna be new for us because we will have to train ourselves to stay off the radio.
But see with that, I'm on a different radio channel, and somebody over here has emergency or priority traffic that would affect me where I'm at, but now I don't hear it, so I'm not connected to it. Terry Garrison, he's the chief of Houston. God bless him, man. Did you see that Houston had another firefighter fatality last night? That poor guy. God, I just lost my whole train of thought.
One frequency versus.
One frequency. You have to solve the communication problem. It's got to be radio distance. Garrison goes to Oceanside, and they're used to the wildland stuff, where they use multiple. Can you do that? Are wildland firefighters in hazard zones? Are they wearing respiratory protection? What happens when the fire gets close to them? I tell them to run away, get away from them. They're not in a hazard zone that will kill them or the workers trying to rescue them. So they're used to it, this whole radio thing, and they go out and they use it in wildland and they try to make it work on a structural fire. So they go in, and how do they combat trying to keep connected to all the other channels? They put their radio on scan. Well, when you're on scan and somebody, let's say it's an outside person that's talking, that locks up the scan, and that's all I'm hearing, where on the other channel, somebody could be saying Mayday. So Garrison shows up, wildland people, Phoenix, oh, he's got Phoenix eyes. The F word, Phoenix. So he gets them, he says, no, one thing that he says, pet peeve of mine will be very patient with any other changes, but one change that I have to make is listen to your radio traffic drives me crazy. We're going to do it all on one radio channel. What was the cultural reaction to that? They went crazy on it. But through training, reinforcement, they start doing it, they start feeling comfortable with it, they start liking it. Garrison gets in an argument with his boss, the mayor, and he ends up negotiating an exit strategy after he's been there 1 year and 9 months, almost 2 years. So a new fire chief comes in. And they say, you know, we really love Garrison, and this guy was a wildland person, he tries to change back the scan thing. What did the Oceanside firefighters tell him? They said, no. We are not going to go back to that. We've done this. It's effective. We've been trained. We have radio discipline. We don't need multiple radio channels. And we're all connected on this fire, so I know exactly what's going on with everybody else here. So that's a pretty big turnaround. In 2 years, they wanted to stone Garrison to death, to where the new person comes in and they're going to stone him to death if they change it.
That's a firefighter.
What's that again?
Don't like change, wants no change.
And, you know, it's size up and manage an air. And I don't want to say, well, that will solve all Maydays, because with flow paths and ventilation control fires, but we have to have a skill set where we can recognize it, keeping us out of trouble, and nothing's ever going to prevent all tragedies. But we got to resist Band-Aids, and we got to fix the stuff that actually is slowing us down. And it's communication, it's like we're not putting water on the fire, we're running around doing all this support that's really not effective, and it doesn't put the fire out. So that's why I started out, and I put water on the fire, do good size up, do not engage where you're going to die. That will prevent most Maydays. Didn't it? And when somebody dies, especially early because they don't do a size up, that's just, well, go back to Garrison, the one that killed 4 firefighters. You know, they ran in, they wanted water, they ran out. It's a 100-year-old building with 3 roof structures, the thing's rolling, and they run back into it. What happened? It fell down and collapsed and killed 4. It actually killed 5. Because the one person, it cut their legs off. I mean, it cut their legs off on the same. The way he fell back and the way the building landed, it was like scissors. So he's got leg amputations, or they're just hanging on by skin. And he was at our CTC doing an instructor CE, and he's going through that fire. Apparently when you get your legs cut off, do you guys ever talk about, you know, we're all firefighters. I would kill myself if this happened. Like if I was paralyzed, I'd kill myself. Well, if I had my legs cut off, I wouldn't kill myself. I could still have kind of a quality of life where I would go on with that one. So this poor guy's got beat up, but you know, he's still gonna live and he can enjoy his kids. Well, the more femur that you have, the better quality of life you're gonna have based on prosthetics. So they wanna save as much as your legs as they can. So one was good, and the other one they had to keep layering stuff off of it to try to save it. So it goes in for an operation. Takes 5 hours. They wheel him out of recovery by 8 o'clock at night. Says goodnight to his family. Nurse does one last check on him. The next time they come into his room is 8 hours later. They find the guy in a pool with his own blood. He's a full code. They revive him right there, and now he's brain dead. And now his wife thinks that, you know, he survived the collapse. She's not going to take him off life support. And he is clinically dead. I mean, Garrison's telling the story with all the detail, man. I almost started sobbing in class. You're thinking, that poor guy, man, what he suffered, and now the hospital kills him. I mean, that is bad. Not good. Not good. And to finish that story, they're there, it's the aftermath, and they're still on the scene. It's about 5 minutes after they just transported this guy. And they're figuring things out. The alarm room comes to them and says, we have a radio from a firefighter that's located in the hazard zone that their mayday thing just went off. Building's collapsed. What do? You're in the buggy tomorrow. 4 dead, one's going to the hospital, his leg's cut off, whole thing's collapsed. And I gotta, you gotta say, hey, there could be somebody in there. Well, that's what they did, so we gotta give them every chance. There was this huge masonry wall that had a significant crack in it, and it was very unstable. So they were aware of it, they're going in there, they're in there about 5 or 6 minutes, trying to get through the rubble. They can see this thing's gonna collapse. And they don't know if it's gonna go in on top of them that way, or it's gonna come out this way, so they say, get out of the building right now. So as they're going through this arch, they're about 5 feet away from it, and it starts collapsing. So they scream at them, run for your lives. So these guys are running away from this wall, and it collapses on the backs of 4 people. Broke 2 firefighters, had 2 broken femurs, one had broken tib fib, the other one had a severe back injury, so now they have to transport 4 or 5 more firefighters to the hospital with significant career-ending injuries. So you talk about a long, long day. And what would have prevented that from happening? A good size up and saying we are not engaged in this. They had a primary all clear from the owner when they got there. Things rolling. And what it is, they pulled them out because they didn't lay a supply line in. So the chief said, come on out, let's get a water supply established before we engage this. It took a long time, and then they re-engaged and boom. What was their mentality in Houston? They don't like the D word, do they? Defensive? None of us do. I make the class go 1, 2, 3, we all take a deep breath and say defensive all through the whole deal so that they can get used to saying it on the radio. So again, nothing can outperform a good size up, could it? And we say that on most firefighter fatalities. It's following SOPs, the whole 9 yards. Phoenix firefighter, you guys see that one about a 1.5 years ago? It was a backing accident. He's in an ambulance, the door's open. His rig's facing forward there. He's getting an SCBA compartment. Somebody's backing in next to him. The door comes in, crushes him, brings him to his knees. The guy keeps backing up. It brings him into the duals in the back of the truck, and it just rips him to pieces. Should that have happened?
No.
What does the SOP say?
Have a backer.
They have a backer? No, and if we just follow our own SOPs and deploy in a way that we build safety systems and they're embedded and there's nothing extra that comes in, that's what keeps firefighters safe. It's not Band-Aids or any other stuff. You guys are really staring at me funny now. And we're past our time, so thank you guys for having me. I hope some of it made sense. Thank you, John. Thank you, guys.